The Shooting Range. In this episode, what one can achieve when push comes to shove, the story of IAR-80. We're getting ready for some new heavy fighters, and remember how the gameplay is different with these birds from those light fighters. Hotline. The developers answer questions that you've left in the comments. But first, let's start with the AMX-50 Foch tank destroyer and how to use it. Behold, the AMX-50 Foch. Wait, what's that? Who put that in here? This can't be a French tank destroyer. It's a coffin on wheels. Where are the stylish forms of the late French turrets? And how the hell does it have any armor? Okay, that last bit was a bit too much. After all, the Foch is based on the heavy AMX-50 tank, whose history we've discussed last week. They are quite dissimilar both outside and inside, but almost all the changes in this case worked for the better. Except for the looks, of course. This is a tank destroyer with great agility, considering its size. Off-road, it goes up to 36 kph, and on-road, you can boost it up to 50. On the other hand, the reverse speed is only 5 kph, so be prepared for some really slow retreats. The main gun here is a 120mm SA-46 cannon that we've already seen in the AMX-50 sur BC. It fires with AP and HE shells that can't be accused of bad piercing rate. 302mm from 100 meters is a very promising number. But unlike the AMX-50 sur BC, the Foch doesn't have an autoloader, so the reload rate went up from 6 seconds to almost 15. Elevation angles also went up for 2 degrees. Now they're from -6 to 16 degrees. The gun in this machine is a lot lower than on the AMX-50 sur BC, so there won't be any problems with vertical aiming. And now, an unexpected advantage for a tank destroyer. This one has a hell of a lot of armor. Not only the frontal armor plate is as thick as 108mm, it also has an angle of 56 degrees, which gives protection from up to 316mm of piercing damage in the front. And we weren't even angling yet. On the other hand, this only works for the frontal armor. On the sides and in the back, there are a lot more than the usual 40mm of armor, and the roof, well, let's not talk about the roof at all. There are 4 crew members working inside the Foch. It has no smokes, and the additional protection is only guaranteed by a 15mm machine gun, even though it has as many as 500 bullets to spare. Not very promising, no. But in most situations you'll be completely fine, because your frontal armor can survive even some duels with the T-95. If you're quite far from it, of course. An ideal battle on the AMX-50 Foch looks roughly like this. First, find some high ground. If there is none, locate the most possible routes of an enemy attack, go there, and wait for them to come. There's no point in hiding in the bushes, as you are quite big, but with armor this thick, you can stop worrying about cover. Your main concern will be preventing anyone closer than a range of 100 meters around you. Why? Well, see this construction on your roof? This is where the optics are located. One spaced shell into this area will guarantee you an express return to the hangar. So, this tank destroyer is for those who like firing on the enemy from a distance. And if you're such a person, its agility and frontal armor will make your life on the battlefield quite long and comfy. And now, let's visit Romania, For the first time, as it happens, not an announcement for a new nation. We're quite far from that kind of statement. But with the next update, the Italian aviation tree is getting a quite interesting Romanian fighter. Let's talk about its historical roots right now. Romania didn't have a developed aviation industry. What it did have was a lot of troubles in foreign affairs. The country was surrounded by enemies, and each one of them could start a war at any minute. So, the Kingdom of Romania was desperately trying to arm their air force with whatever was in stock. They were buying or licensing French, Italian, German, British, and even Polish aircraft. The danger of the coming war was getting closer by the minute. One day, the Romanians had realized that their country would soon be torn apart. They didn't know then by whom, but it was clearly inevitable. That also meant that, should the war start, Romania couldn't be sure that the foreign planes would keep coming. They needed to develop their own industry. So, the High Command ordered an aircraft created completely within the borders of Romania. They didn't have much, true, but you have to start somewhere, right? The military probably expected the new aircraft to be quite mediocre, but at least it would be their own. Their expectations failed. The aircraft designer, Ion Grosu, presented his IAR-80. It was a masterpiece. Of course, it had some flaws and weaknesses, but it surely couldn't be called mediocre. How did Grosu manage all that? He simply tried not to make mistakes. No, seriously. That was the secret. For example, what's the engine we've got? The 14-cylinder Mistral Major, a licensed French technology that was obviously weak for the late 30s. Okay, we'll use that. We'll just make sure to give a lot of extra attention to the aerodynamics. With that in mind, the IAR-80 turned out to be not very fast, but very maneuverable. What else is there that isn't perfect? The hydraulics? Oh, and we don't have any synchronizers. Okay, we'll take extra time to think about the wing construction and the plane balance as well. That was Grosu's approach to every part of this aircraft. Of course, nobody would expect the IAR-80 to contain at least one innovative solution, but the fighter turned out to be quite balanced and had a huge resource for improvement. The armament could be changed. The remotorization crews could use almost any of the existing 14-cylinder engines, and the wing was even capable of carrying bombs. Should history have gone another way, this amazing Romanian fighter could easily compete with the Focke-Wulf 190 as an equal. But the events were going according to what we already know. Romania was indeed torn apart even before the war began. First, the Soviet ultimatum and the loss of Bessarabia. Then, the Second Vienna Award, a desperate attempt to keep Transylvania from the Hungarians, and in the end, an additional loss of Dobruja to Bulgaria. Humiliation, hatred, pro-Nazi politicians rising to power, and the promises from Berlin that if Romania would join the Third Reich's fight against the USSR, not only would they quickly get Bessarabia back, but they'd also take a huge part of the Ukrainian SSR. No wonder that as soon as the 23rd of June 1941, the Romanian IAR-80 started shooting over Chernivtsi, Izmail, and Tiraspol. At the same time, this fighter was still improving. It received additional machine guns, making them 6 in total. Then, 2 of these were swapped for heavy-caliber Browning FNs, and later, they were replaced with two 20mm Icaria cannons. That was the name of the licensed German MG-FF. Lastly, the aircraft received the newest German MG-151. The only flaw that wasn't yet fixed was the extremely old 1,000 horsepower engine. The IAR-80 would look great with the powerful German BMW 801, like the one on the Focke-Wulf 190. It would be almost unstoppable, but it wasn't destined to become true. Those engines were so rare that even Germans weren't able to use them as much as they wanted, and Romania never even got one of those. So, when they realized that the IAR-80 couldn't compete with the other fighters anymore, they decided to repurpose it to become a universal fighter bomber. What did it take them? Probably an hour. The only thing they had to do was to install a dive bombing rack under the fuselage. The repurposed machines received a new name, the IAR-81, and went to the front that was inevitably getting closer to the borders of the country that created these amazing planes with yellow crosses. Then came the revolution. The new government and the same IAR-81s that were still quite capable of fighting went to face their ex-allies, the Germans. The IAR-80 served in Romania until the early 50s and then quietly became history, the kind that is remembered only by historians and aviation professionals. But this doesn't apply to our project. The Italian aviation tree of War Thunder is getting a fourth aircraft, created by its users as a part of the revenue share program. This time, Vitaly Nova-29R Vostokov created the final modification of this plane, the IAR-81C, with a dive bombing rack and two MG-151 cannons. So don't restrain yourself. Get inside this bird and show those arrogant leaders of world aviation that a good aircraft can be created anywhere, even in a country where it seems to be impossible. One of the stars of Update 1.79 will be a new heavy fighter, the Bf-109 Zwilling. It's time to get prepared for the coming of the twins and remember how to play on this type of aircraft. Why would one need a heavy fighter? Obviously, to heavily fight something. But jokes aside, these machines had a very wide range of tasks. With two engines, they had bigger payloads, which meant a wider application area. But mostly, they were used for accompanying bombers, destroying ground targets, scouting, and, of course, intercepting the enemy bombers by day and by night alike. No wonder that in the game, these machines are outstandingly versatile. Usually, their armament is capable of turning enemy bombers into dust, but at the same time, nobody forbids you to add a couple of bombs under the wings and decrease the number of opponents on the ground. Sounds like a typical strike aircraft, yes, but the heavy fighters are a lot faster. Also, speaking about armament, the firepower of these aircraft is higher than on the one-engine fighters of the same BR. For example, the Bullfighter Mark 6C flies with four 20mm Hispano cannons shooting 5.17 kilograms of death in a second. At the same time, the Yak-1B that shares the BR with the Bullfighter can answer with only one 20mm Schwach and a 12.7mm Berezin UB. The two of them combined produce a blast of less than 2 kilograms per second. There are, of course, some exceptions to that rule, but the main point is If a heavy fighter challenges you for a frontal duel, there's little chance you'll survive that attack. Thirdly, these machines are a lot more durable, thanks to the second engine, of course. With it, your chances of survival are much higher, even if one engine is already dead. You can't fight properly with only one engine, true, but you'll be quite able to stay in the air and possibly even get yourself to the base and repaired. There are, of course, some disadvantages as well. As you might have guessed, your size and weight make you absolutely useless in dogfights. There are a couple of exceptions, naturally, such as the P-38 Lightning, but in all other cases we strictly recommend no meddling with fast-turning enemies on their field. And why would you? You've got the firepower and quite a sturdy construction. Boom and zoom them as long as you like. Just remember to control your speed, as some of these aircraft lose their wings as slow as 600 to 700 kph. Still, fighting with small and agile planes is not for the heavy fighters. Better choose the historical approach and attack enemy bombers. That way, you'll be able to completely fulfill the potential of these machines, and they will be the most comfortable to hunt. What heavy fighter do you like the most? Give us the answer in the comments. Get ready for the traditional last part of our show, Hotline. Developers answering questions from the comments. The first question was asked by a user called Alex Micros G. When will you give us more info about helicopters and War Thunder? Hi there, mate. Basically, when we're ready to show you anything specific. As you might have noticed, we tend not to announce things until they're more or less ready to be revealed. The April Fool's tests gave us a lot to think about last year, and there's a lot of work to do before we can officially announce anything. But we're getting there, that's for sure. Fred Plays asks, do you have any news on the Xbox game? I saw it was accidentally released by Microsoft earlier in the week. Hi there. First, let's clarify that the information published by Microsoft wasn't real, but we're working very actively on the version for Xbox One. It's one of our top priorities right now. Of course, as long as we're ready to tell you more, we will tell you more. Then there is a question from a user called XMrFede27. Will Italy get to capture the French planes like a D-520? For now, our plans for Italy contain planes that were created in, Italy. There are quite a lot of them that are still not in the game. We might add some of the captured ones, but it surely won't be our first priority. Another question today was sent by Landon Slodowski. Hey Gaijin, how do us players get in dev service? Well, you might try becoming our tester. For that, contact us on our site. In other cases, why would you need that? All the main fun is on the servers that you already have the access to. And the very last, very serious message was sent by a player called Be No Man. French. They don't even have a word for baguette. Don't they, though? You might want to rethink that argument, mate. That's it for today, but feel free to write your questions in the comments below. We do read them all, and you might see some of them answered in the next episode. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you on the shooting range.